Joining me now to discuss, retired Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. He's a former IDF spokesperson, the senior fellow now at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, always good to speak with you. Thanks so much for joining.
Hello, Jim. Thank you.
So when you look at the outlines of this deal, beginning with this first phase, 33 hostages, 6 weeks of a ceasefire, then expanding from there, I mean, those outlines have been consistent for months. At least something along those lines has been on the table for months. So why now? Why do you believe that now it might finally get across the finish line?
Well, Jim, if it gets across the finish line, I believe it's very much related to the visit this Saturday of Envoy Witkoff, who was here probably to impress upon all the relevant decision makers in Israel, in Qatar, and Egypt that now is the time and you don't want to be the one that spoils the deal. And I believe that all the relevant parties took notice and acted accordingly. And that is the action that we're seeing in the last few days and the additional information coming out that a deal is near and the details. And you're right, Jim. The deal as we understand it now is not new. The details are not new. The conditions are not new. The numbers are not new. And the sticking points are not new. This is very similar to what we've seen over the last few months. And what apparently has changed is incoming President Trump, who is setting down his foot and informing everybody that there best be a deal or the person who foiled the deal will be held responsible.
How does he manage that? I mean, what is the difference in pressure? If that is true, if Trump is able to get this across the finish line and he is the difference here, what is the pressure that he's putting on Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, and Hamas, that President Biden was not willing or able to?
If my assessment is that at least on the Israeli side, Israel understands that this is a milestone. This is not the end of the confrontation between Hamas and Israel. This is a milestone, a very important one for the people of Israel, for the hostage families, to get their loved ones home. But I think that Israel understands that this is probably the best way to get them home. But afterwards, we will still need to go back to fight Hamas because, unfortunately, Hamas will still be in power in Gaza. And I think that what Prime Minister Netanyahu, a very, very accomplished politician, is doing is playing a long game and understanding that now is the time to get along with President-elect Trump's decision and his desire to see a deal made, understanding that there will be many more chapters to write in this horrible story of Israel and Gaza. And perhaps then we will see a different policy coming from the White House of President Trump, as opposed to what we've seen over the last 15 months under President Biden and his appointed people.
As you know, Israel's national security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, as well as other far-right members, have been rallying to attempt to collapse the Netanyahu government if this deal is agreed to. In a post on X, he boasted about blocking an agreement, saying, quote, "In the past year, through our political power, we succeeded in preventing this deal from moving forward time and time again." Is that right-wing flank of Netanyahu a real risk to his government if a deal goes through?
First of all, as an Israeli, I'd like to say that I find it perverse that a minister boasts or thinks that it's a point to his credit that he torpedoed a deal to bring back Israeli hostages. I can't understand it, but perhaps it's above my pay grade. I think that, I'm a very intermediate understander of political things, but I'm not entirely sure that Ben-Gvir and Smotrich have many alternatives if they cause the government to fall. There's wide, almost wall-to-wall support across political boundaries in Israel for a deal to be made, for the hostages to be brought back home. I assess that it wouldn't be a wise political move to actually torpedo a deal and cause the government to fall, because there would be elections after that, and probably the ones who would do that would be held accountable by the electorate. And all of the polls indicate that Ben Gvir wouldn't fare well in any such scenario. I think his record as minister is also very mediocre and perhaps even below that. So I think the electorate will respond accordingly. But what I hope is that the Israeli government will be able to take a deal that is now here and has been here for the last months. And it's not a perfect deal by any means, and we will have to make sacrifices here. But at the end of the day, if Hamas remains in power, then Israel is short of achieving all of its goals that it set out to achieve 15 months ago. And what that also means is that, yes, we will see a respite in fighting. Yes, there will be a chance to add humanitarian aid into Gaza and perhaps alleviate the suffering. Yes, there will perhaps be quiet nights in Israel, but we will still be fighting a jihadi organization.
That appears to be part of the deal going forward. Jonathan Conricus, always good to have you on. Thanks so much for joining.